Okay, you guys let me know if you can hear us before I start talking, and then the usual happens where nothing happens. Yeah, I always say that, but I have not messed up our audio since switching to YouTube.
You're an expert.
I don't know what happened on Twitch that I just kept messing up.
It was cursed.
People are already asking questions, and we haven't even started. They haven't answered the one question I asked them. Do you guys hear
Can
us?
you hear us?
Do you hear us before we start? Please tell us. I'm talking Spanish, and I know Spanish. You can't get anything by me. You can't get anything by me. You know the bad words too. It's pretty much all I know. I'm half Cuban. All right, no one's answering. Yes, okay, they can hear us.
Oh, good.
Okay,
Good.
step
Awesome.
one.
Step one
Audio.
is out of the
Check.
way. Hello, everyone. I know you're probably hearing a lot of ambient sound. I had network audit, so my switches back there are loud. We also have an Area 51 over here, which you guys can't see. It's right next to Eric, right next to his microphone, because this Area 51 is going to go over some of the new cool stuff for Alienware Command Center, which we have a lot of news for. But introductions first. First of all, you all know I'm Umar Khan. I'm your host for Tech Talk, and joined again, if you guys have seen some of our AMAs, we have Eric.
Hello.
And we have Nick.
How are you doing, neighbor?
Today because it's Halloween, so we didn't really plan this specifically because it landed on Halloween. It just so happened that
It just worked out that way.
It just worked out that way. We're like, you know what?
And that's why there's no theme to our costumes.
There is
right?
no theme at all.
Just,
One
well,
is
what did
very
you wanna be?
wholesome.
Yeah.
One is a murderer, and I'm Dad the human.
I mean, it's kind of like we've got the full spectrum, right? Like you're kind of in the middle,
Yeah,
right? And I'm, yeah.
Kind of the glue holding everything together.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
real family picture we have over here. So yeah, we wanted to talk about some of the new features that are coming to Alienware Command Center. For those of you that aren't aware of Command Center, we have a new Alienware Command Center that launched with our our current generation notebooks, the Alienware 15R4, the 17. I'm about to do my middle finger. The 17R5, as well as the latest version of the Area 51. We recently announced at TwitchCon the Aurora R8, right? R8 or R6? R8.
All right.
So many revisions
So many
happened
times,
so
yeah.
quickly for this thing. That also has a new Alienware Command
I need
Center.
one of those things like that the football players wear on their hand so that you can check
Just
which one it is.
Check which one it is.
Cheat sheet.
Different.
Cheat sheet.
All look the
R3,
same.
R4,
All look the
R5,
same. I
right.
can't tell what time it is. So yes, and we want to talk about what that command center does on those platforms, right? So Nick, Eric, what is new about the new update that's coming? Well, first of all, when is this new update coming out? When are people expected to open up their command center and see changes?
Should be getting that in the next couple of days, as long as you've got a supported system,
Yes.
like Umar said.
Yeah, and this isn't available. We haven't gone over the features, but I just want to get these questions out because they're going to ask me every time I look at my screen. I'm seeing it happening. This is available. On this is not going to be available on people that just put Command Center on a non-Alienware
Third
system,
party.
right?
Yeah,
this
not
isn't
yet.
like the
No.
peripheral supported one and all that stuff, right?
No.
This is specific to our current generation desktop and laptops, right?
Right. And when we get into what it is we're talking about, it should make sense.
Yes. Okay. So now that you guys don't have to ask that 20,000 times, well, I'm not looking at the screen. What is new in the new Command Center update?
So yeah, new features coming out. You may be familiar, we've already got CPU overclocking.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people have been asking for, when am I going to see GPU overclocking in there? When am
Yeah.
I going to get that ability? When am I going to have memory overclocking options?
Yeah.
So we went back to the drawing board and redid some updates, and then we're bringing those to you now. So we've got GPU overclocking and memory overclocking now added to the Fusion section of the new Alienware Command Center.
And this is something people have been asking for a long time, like
Yeah.
a very, very long time for Command Center. I think probably since before I left
Yeah, before my
Alienware the
time.
first time. Yeah, I didn't leave willingly, but I remember that it was that people wanted GPU overclocking since like day one when we offered CPU overclocking, and
Right.
now that's available through Command Center.
Always more.
always more.
Never be happy with what
Always
you got.
more. You
Gotta
know, you
have
can never be
more.
happy because
Yeah, sweet, CPU. Okay, when am I getting GPU?
because man, because our people,
coming.
our customers are alphas. You know,
This is
why
true.
why s- why
They want the
why
best.
why settle at the bar when you can set the bar?
That's right.
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 So they always want
exactly
more,
right.
and they just want, you know, to further that experience. And that's something that we spoke about when the new command center first came out was, well, not the new command center first came out was that we were going to constantly be working on new features and new things that were going to be coming to it. And so far, from its an initial release to it being available for our peripherals as well as pretty much any
third
computer
party,
at
yeah.
this point, to now these features, like we are constantly adding updates to something that came out we announced it in January.
CES of, yeah,
We
CES
announced it. It wasn't
this
even
year.
it wasn't even launched yet. It was launched in, I think, April.
February or April, I want to
Yeah,
say.
it was something like that. Like we've constantly been updating this thing with the features that people have been asking about for a long time.
Yeah, we're kind of in this launch when ready kind of mode, so we're working on
Yep.
features, and as these features become ready, you know, we want to push them out the door so you guys get the latest and greatest as soon as we can. So we don't want to
Yeah.
delay, you know, we want to hold features back, we want to make sure features are coming out on a regular cadence. So
Absolutely.
we're going to continue to do that into next year as well. So we got a lot more in the hopper and a lot more things that Eric and team are working on too, so.
And this is really great for a lot of people that are getting into the RTX cards this generation. Like they can now not just see what are the standards out there from what they're seeing from reviews and benchmarks that are coming out, but they can overclock now on their Alienware, those RTX cards, and even take them higher than that. They can feel some form of pride having that and the control over the graphics card itself.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And that's what it's all about, right? It's just pushing the limits. Like, overclocking is as much a hobby as it is like a quest for more performance, to me anyway, right? Like,
Yeah.
I've been overclocking my system since as far back as I can remember. And it's as much about doing it as it is about getting the results from it, right? Like just, okay, like my wife, when we were first dating, I built her Sandy Bridge system, and she was just like, I want to push this to 5 gigahertz on air. I want 5 gigahertz on air. And I'm just like, I want to marry this woman.
Yeah.
But that's like, and I'm like, it's not really going to make a difference, right? Like, you've got more CPU than your games are going to need. And she's like, I
Yeah.
don't care. I want 5 gigahertz.
Yeah.
I just want to have it to have it.
And that's the thing, when you see that there's potential there to have it, I mean, why not?
Right, exactly.
Why not try to reach it? Screw it. You
Yeah.
paid for it.
Don't leave
Just go
performance on the
for it.
table, right?
Yeah. Let me see if there's any questions in the chat right now. Yeah, like, I don't even know how to say their name. How do you say things that start with an X? Because it's Xavier, so their name's like Sazino, Sashino? Shasino?
Something like
Most people don't
social.
care about, people in the chat that are buying Alienware don't care about their money. They just care about the specs and the possibilities, which we've added to that. Because a lot of people can come out with specs, right? I mean,
Right.
we've seen it in the market, like people can come out with specs. That's one of the things that we've pushed for software, not just software, oh, look at these crazy lights, which we've done with the individual key, the per key lighting on the keyboards on our current generation laptops. But all these other features, game libraries, overclocking, power options, all these different things that we can put in there that we're not really seeing out there in the market. Anybody
Right.
can throw in a motherboard, a graphics card, and all that. I mean, you can even
Yeah,
see
the
that from
commodities, right?
even
They're-
boutiques do it. Boutiques do it, and they throw in these motherboards and stuff like. But what's the difference between you building your own system and doing that, as opposed to the experience that you can get from an Alienware?
Yeah.
That's right. We've taken a lot of the guesswork out of it. Made things simple to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you don't want to go in, we're going to walk through it, but if you don't want to go in and do all the fine tuning of certain things, you can pick some of the presets,
Yeah.
preset profiles we've already created for you, and overclock it with the click of one button. you
Yep.
know, So we try to make things easier.
Definitely
And you
helps
having
people
to
that
do it
want to
on
get
your
into
own.
that category of performance, like that knowledge, that group, that community, those first steps into understanding that themselves in a safe environment as well.
Right.
Right. Because overclocking can be intimidating to people.
It is,
It's,
yeah.
It's not something that everybody does or knows how to do. So to do it safely and do it right,
Yeah.
we wanted to make that easier. So that's why we continue to add these features, and now we're adding the GPU and memory piece to it. So
Yep.
kind of building that whole theme out from the overclocking standpoint.
couple other questions before we go into the actual demo of it. Any new laptops coming? I just announced the M15 like 1,000 times in October.
Yeah,
but
check the web, man. There's
check,
one out.
check out the web. It's out there. I have a whole playlist for it on the YouTube channel. Matter of fact, if you click, I think the iCard for this stream, which is the top right-hand corner, there should be a link there to take you to the M15 page as well. Another question. Will this be available in the new M15, these features? I don't think, this is mostly for systems with unlocked processors, or?
Yeah, so it's gonna be, the CPU overclocking requires an unlocked processor. The GPU overclocking, we're still determining if we wanna roll that out totally across the board. Because honestly, some of the systems weren't designed with that
In mind,
thought
yeah.
in mind. Right, yeah, exactly. Like, when they were looking at the thermals, they weren't thinking like, okay, overclocking this video card is a thing. So we're making sure that it's not gonna overheat anything, it's not gonna blow up your system if
Yeah.
we enable it, right? So we're being careful, we're being smart about it, but we do wanna roll it out to as many different platforms as we
Yeah,
can.
it's understandable on the laptop platform, because if you look on our website, like you see that we sell 1080s on our different laptops that are out there, but they're already overclocked. We have them at
Yep.
the highest total graphics power out there on the market.
Right.
Like, we already went above what everybody else was doing on there, and then to say, hey, we're also gonna enable overclocking, like, we're gonna basically be selling you a Fireball.
Yeah.
So-
Don't set it on your lap.
Yeah, actually, I
might
think
get
for a
out.
while, that's why you couldn't call them laptops, because people were burning their laps.
Yeah.
And they switched it to notebooks.
Yeah.
And then we went back to laptops this one. I remember it was like 2007 or something, like legal was really on, you can't be saying laptops anymore, it's burning people. I was like, okay, notebooks, whatever. It took me a while to get used to that, and then everyone was saying laptops again, so I guess.
More easily
Yeah.
portable computers.
Any incoming 17-inch thin profile laptops? I don't know. Frank Azor likes to leak things on Twitter. Why don't you ask him, since he's allowed to say things I'm not? I called
Check
him
with
out
Frank.
on it the other day. I was like, that's not fair. He's like, I'm the boss. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go through the actual demo of this. So right now on my screen, I have your desktop showing, your desktop screen. I thought you were about to bat. No one's going to just hit the monitor.
Yeah, so if we come over here into Fusion, so we've seen the CPU overclocking, right? We talked about this a little bit, where you can come in here, you can overclock the CPU, you can do it automatically, or you can manually set it up. So I've actually got this one running overclocked and slightly undervolted, which is pretty cool. So it keeps the heat and noise down quite a bit. So that's the CPU. We've had that for a while, right?
Yeah.
So,
Some of this, still, some of the safety features we carried through into these other ones, as you'll see, but
yeah.
on that one, you've got the radar blips as you move the sliders
Yeah.
to give you an indication of if you're in like a safe zone, or if you're potentially getting into a zone that, might be unstable. So, again,
Right.
trying to build in those safety features.
It kind of
So-
predetermines, like, hey, don't even attempt this. Like,
Right,
this is,
yeah,
this
you
is
might
pretty
be pushing
unstable.
it.
Yeah.
And it's all silicon based, right? Because every CPU is different, so each one.
The silicon
kinda has a-
lottery.
Silicon lottery, exactly
Yeah.
right. So you never know exactly what you're gonna get, so we have to adjust it based on, each person's
Right.
setup, so.
Yeah.
And that's actually one of the very, like, real small difference, but something that we did with this new release is you'll notice the bars are actually gonna mirror that radar blip color. Whereas before they were just a single uniform color. So this
Wait,
makes
every
it,
time you're going, so I'm not looking at your screen, I'm looking at this screen. You're not using any software to make this blip show up, right?
no,
This is
that's,
part of the software.
that's built in.
Okay.
Yeah. So the blip would always show you like kind of the green, yellow, red sort of methodology, right? Where if you're in green, like that's
Solid, you're in the
that's
safe
solid.
zone, man.
Yeah, you're in the safe zone, right? If you get into yellow, it's like, okay, depending on silicone lottery, you might be pushing it a little bit. If you get into red, it's like, okay, well, cross your fingers and hope you're all right.
Yeah.
So it was a little difficult to see at a glance where you were at. And we kind of noticed that, like, if you're sitting there, if you're really wanting to fine tune and tweak a lot of things, it was a little more difficult to tell. So one of the things that we're doing with this release is making it so that the bars are mirroring where those blips are. So
Okay.
you'll see if I take this and I push it up into green on the blip, you'll see the bar is green, right? And if I get it into red, you'll see the bar goes red. So that's one of the things we did to change, just make it a little easier for people to come in here and see at a glance where they're at.
Yeah.
So they can, if they're running into some instability in games, maybe it's a little easier to find where that could be coming from.
Yep, and then test and save still, we'll go through and test those settings before they implement them, make sure that what you did dial in is gonna work for you. And if
Yeah.
not, it's gonna give you the error message that, these settings may not be correct, so, try again.
Yeah. I can run through that if you want to see it, but
I think I've gone through it a couple, but
Yeah,
for
we
the,
can-
for the sake of people that I haven't seen in chat before, I'm seeing a lot of people that have turned over to this chat, so just, doesn't take long anyway, but.
yeah, no, this only takes maybe 30 seconds or so. But what this does is it just runs a number of different, just different tests on the CPU, right? We're going to run through a number of different instruction sets. We're going to push it to different levels and in different ways to make sure that it's going to be stable when you're actually using it to run games and you're not going to run into crashing.
While this is still validating, I'll answer some of the questions here in chat. Is this command center update for all new Alienware devices? Most of the features, right? For the most part, the most robust one's gonna be on the Aurora and the Area 51, right? On our
Right.
desktops. Is there an i9 notebook? Yes, there has been an i9 notebook. It's the 15 and 17 both have it.
Yep.
Our current available 15 and 17, not the M15 with the lowercase m, which isn't a lowercase, it's a capital M. You just have to change the font sign is a little bit lower.
It's just a small
Just a
capital.
smaller, yeah,
Smaller
smaller
capital
capital. But there you see, you ran the test, it let you know that it passed, and it'll let you know, especially if you're doing like something bad.
Yep.
Test fail, your system won't blue screen or anything like that. It'll just be, hey, we went
Right.
through this, not a good idea, bro.
I have actually got it to crash a couple of systems. If you push it like a lot of stuff into the red, you can occasionally get unstable.
Yeah, because once it gets that test, it's like, oh God, what did you do? It's like
Right.
they opened the door and a bunch of spikes came out and just hit it in the
That's right.
face.
Yeah,
Fell
yeah.
on you, fridge fell on you.
But that's kind of the balance you got to find with like how much do you want to let somebody push their system, right? So here we get into the actual GPU overclocking. So we've got an overview, much like we do with the CPU, where you can kind of see like what's your temperature, what power usage are you at, how much of your GPU is getting utilized, what's your memory speed running at, and of course you can see the core speed as well. And then when you get into the advanced view here, you can actually come in here and crank up a number of different settings. So these are going to be, what you see in here is going to be dependent on not just the fact that this is a Centauri, but also that it's a 1060. So different combinations of systems and video cards. You may see slightly different variables in here, right? So you might be
Yeah.
able to push the power a little higher or a little lower.
For those of you that might get a little confused, Centauri's not a new platform. It's the name for the Area 51.
Sorry.
It's okay. Joe messes up all the time. So I've already rolled with it. If people say the code names, that's a code name. So yeah, the Area 51, we call it Centauri. I mean, it hasn't been used for like 5 years now, but that's the name of it. It's on the Area 51 that he's talking about.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
he
the
had
Area
this feature.
51,
Yeah.
sorry.
It's okay. I just, Centauri, there is a new desktop. There's new something. No.
No. Centauri is
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
Area 51.
Yeah.
So for this, I've got this pushed up to maximum right now. So the power limit, this is how much voltage are we allowing the card to pull down, right? 100% is going to be stock. So you can reduce that if you want your video card to run a little bit cooler. If you're not going to be pushing it as hard, that's an option for you. Push it a little higher, that means that you can get a little bit more performance out of it too. But you're also going to generate more heat when you do that. So we also have in here a thermal control. So the way that video cards work with modern boosting technology is they're gonna scale up past what their advertised clock speed is until they either hit a limit of power or a limit of heat.
Okay. And this is basically a heat limiter, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what this allows you to do is adjust that heat limiter. So the stock on this is, I want to say probably 82 or 84. Yeah, 83. So we're letting you push this up to 92 degrees. So that means that it's not going to start scaling your speed back until it hits 92.
Yeah. Okay. And mind you, it depends on how much performance that you're getting out of this, how much more overclocked it is. It's not saying that it's going to go up to 92 unless you're specifically demanding something that'll bring it up to that temperature, right?
Exactly, yeah, this isn't a push my card to 92 Celsius, this is
Yeah.
start scaling back if it
When
hits
it-
92
okay.
Celsius.
Setting your limit, basically.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah, you're pushing the ceiling up, not the floor.
Not setting a spec.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can link those if you want, or you can set them
Mm-hmm.
separately and do your, test and save like you did with CPU as well.
Exactly, so yeah, I've got them unlinked right now, so I can move this around and it doesn't affect this. But then if I link them, moving one is gonna move the other.
Okay. And from core clock to memory clock speed, for those that aren't familiar with GPU overclocking, I know, like we said, people are kind of like offish about overclocking, but I feel like people know more about CPU overclocking just because that's kind of like
It's been
the
around
grandfather
longer.
of it. Like that's
Yeah.
just- but CPU or GPU overclocking, a lot of people don't necessarily know where most of that power comes from. What is something that they should run through that would actually make them see some noticeable difference when they're running like Fraps or, the NVIDIA frame rate counter, or the one in Steam or anything like that?
Yeah,
Even
you
the
can-
benchmarks in Tomb Raider.
Yeah, you can turn on any kind of FPS counter, like Steam's got one that just will overlay on any Steam game. You can run through some benchmarks like 3D Mark or, Unengine, whatever, right? And just
Yeah.
look at your scores. And as you push up the core clock and the memory clock, you'll see those start to get better.
Yeah. And I've done that a couple times on the stream. If people look, I'm sure I have. Oh, that was on Twitch. Anyway, if you look through our Twitch channel, there is a collection of my older tech talks, and I do overclock live with some like back-end software that I use because there isn't really a lot of official GPU overclocking software out there.
Yeah, there's really not. Usually you have to get it from whoever assembled the card. And if you buy from somebody that doesn't do that, then you're just kind of out of luck.
You got nothing.
Yeah.
Unless you get really crazy and you hack up one of the other third-party tools to allow it to run on your Founders Edition card or
And
something.
that's what I did.
That's what I do too.
Live, yeah. Cool. So what else is there that's been added here? I
Well,
know
yeah,
you talked
so-
about CPU, GPU.
So, yeah, this is still all in the GPU, right? So the core
Okay.
clock and the memory clock, you can think of a GPU, if you're not familiar with how these work. A GPU is almost like a computer inside your computer, right? So the GPU is like your CPU, and the memory is like your system's RAM, but just dedicated to your
Dedicated to
graphics card.
graphics, yeah.
So when you're pushing the core clock, you're overclocking the processing unit on the card. When you push up the memory, you're pushing up the memory speed on the card.
Yeah.
And both of those can give you pretty good gains, depending on what game it is and what card you have.
Especially the resolution as well, right? So playing games like at 4K and stuff, you probably get more benefit out of pushing the memory clock, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to get more out of memory on higher resolution. If you're playing an older game or you're playing like 1080p, the core clock might give you a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay. And you do see significant boosts from overclocking your GPUs. If anybody hadn't done it, you should definitely try it if you can find something that will allow you to do it. If you don't have, if you end up not having the new Alienware Command Center that's available on all of our current generation platforms. Just throwing that out there, go to Dell.com, purchase. We have great discounts on Alienware Arena if you go and sign up for DA rewards.
Smash that buy now.
Smash that buy now button. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel. Yeah, whenever I've overclocked the GPU, I don't feel
It's
Well, you
it's
make it feel
demonstrably
good,
it's
better.
100%.
Yeah.
It is where you're getting your
gaining
graphics.
some
It's
benefits,
100% where you're getting your biggest performance boost when playing games.
Yeah.
100%. Like CPUs are so busty now. It's like they're
Yeah.
all great,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's the thing, right? Unless you're running like a really low-end graphics card or you're gaming at like 720p, then you're going to get more out of the video card than the CPU.
Yeah, I think a lot of people right now for their CPUs should probably keep more in mind encoding and stuff like that, especially if you decide to stream, because you definitely need a good processor for that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Which is kind of where it falls in that category. If you want to like get your personality out there, like CPU is important, CPU overclocking. When it comes to gameplay, like 100%, like at this point, like the graphics card is what carries that performance boost.
Yeah. So, yeah, like Nick was saying, right? So we've got 150 on the core clock. I tested this before we set this computer up in here. So I don't know if this is going to be stable, but we can test it right now and see. I mean, I only pushed it up another 25 megahertz on the memory, so it should be fine, hopefully.
Again, just another test and save, another safety feature.
Yep.
Make sure that things
Hey,
are
look,
stable.
Razor's in our chat, but it might be just a troll account. When are we gonna have webcams? When are you gonna have a computer that isn't garbage? I guess, sure. I mean, webcams are cool. I think Logitech owns that market anyway.
All right, cool. So, yeah, so that passed, so saved it, and then it's now part of this profile.
Okay,
So then the other feature that we've got that's new here is actually supporting XMP as part of Command Center.
yeah,
So again, much like the GPU and the CPU, right, we're going to have a section where you can monitor, you can look at your current settings. So you can see the RAM is set to 2400 megahertz. It's the best XMP RAM I could find on short notice. So sorry, but
yeah, I mean,
it works for showing what it does, right? You can see the voltage in here. You can see the memory timings. And then when you come into your advanced view here, what we're going to show is sort of the active, like this is what you've got now. And then you've got disabled, which is just going to be whatever the default speed on your RAM is.
yeah,
And then any XMP profiles that are built into that RAM, you're going to see them in here. So you've got XMP1 and XMP2. So I've got XMP2 baked into this to this profile that I've built out here. And XMP, unlike overclocking your CPU or your video card, you do have to reboot the system. So we decided to keep this at more of a system level, right? Like even when we start kind of tying in the graphics card overclocking to the CPU as part of those predefined profiles,
yeah,
this will probably still stay on its own.
okay,
Just because we don't want somebody to come in here and go like, okay, let me try OC1 and run a benchmark, and then I'll try OC2 and run a benchmark and have to reboot the system in between those.
yeah, that'll get annoying.
Yeah.
What are some of the benefits of memory overclocking? And I'm pretty sure that a lot of that ties into CPU overclocking as well. right?
Yeah, it definitely does. The advantage is that anything that your processor is doing has to be fed to it through the RAM. So by upping the speed of your RAM, you're upping the speed of anything that your processor needs to do. Because your processor is so much faster than any storage. Even like the fastest M2 drives right now are thousands and thousands of times slower than the cache baked into your processor.
Yeah,
So the faster you can get your RAM, the better.
yeah,
And that's gonna lead to not just performance increases in gaming, but it's gonna make your system just feel faster in
It's gonna
everyday
have a
use.
greater response time and stuff like that, just switching between programs, opening things up, and,
Yeah.
CPU can call on memory faster. when
Yeah.
You get those different speeds in there.
and again, I mean, that's something that I might wanna do for a live stream, or maybe just a video, because I encode lots of content all the time, I render lots of things, like, that might be something that, because they're always telling me, like, you should do overclocking, CPU overclocking, so I'm like, I'm not gonna notice really the difference, but I definitely would notice the difference between, because one of the major things when I'm looking at, like when I Frankenstein some of our units, is making sure I have enough memory. Like, I make sure I have tons of memory as opposed to
Yeah.
the highest end CPU, which I can get anywhere. They're all over the place, all over, like roaches. I got Threadrippers and i7s and i9s all over
They're like
the
belly
place.
buttons.
They're like belly buttons.
We have the best first world problems here, don't we?
We have the best first world problems, yeah. I remember I was gonna go do D&D, and I didn't have my laptop with me. I'm like, man, I don't have a laptop, so I just went to my inventory and I just grabbed like an i9, Alienware 15.
Like,
Yeah.
That is an i9.
I just use an i9. This is okay for opening my spreadsheets for Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, no, I'll pull up my PDF
Yeah.
player's handbook,
I put it in OC level 3 just for fun.
just so I can scroll through my spells super fast.
Anything else from this update, or anything else that you want to
No, this is kind of the big thing we're rolling out. Like you said, people have been asking for this stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
We were actually talking about this a little bit before the stream started, right? Like, if you want to actually go in and push your memory past what the XMP profiles can do, you can still get into the BIOS and do that, right? But that's a little more daunting for somebody who's not as familiar with overclocking
Yeah.
manually. So we wanted to give people a very easy and accessible way to get into that
Yeah.
and get a really good level of performance. And then if you feel like pushing the boundaries on the memory, you can still do it.
Man, overclocking through the BIOS is just obnoxious.
It can be,
It is
yeah.
obnoxious because you have to always make sure to be spamming the button to enter the menu. You have to go save and reset over and over again. You can't really see the performance change until you get into Windows. So
Right.
if you can do it in Windows, like that's way more beneficial than constantly going into your pre-boot environment and all that. It's obnoxious.
Yeah, and then you gotta, like, okay, I pushed it too hard and now it won't boot up at all, so I've gotta clear my CMOS
Yeah.
and then
Oh my God.
start over from scratch and,
I
yeah.
remember doing that all the time. Back in, it's like 2007 in Alienware, I was doing I was a QA manager for a bit. I was something for a bit here all the time. But I was QA manager, and I remember that we were overclocking, like, I think this is when like quad cores first came out. And we were
Oh,
trying
yeah,
to get,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
stable overclock
It was
across all of
the,
them.
like the, what was it, the Intel, Core 2 quads.
The Core 2, yeah, the Core 2 quads is what
Yeah.
it was. I remember because I had the Core 2 Quad Extreme or something like that, which was like a
I think it was a
$2,400
beast.
CPU
Yeah.
at the time. I remember we were selling those, and when we'd overclock, we'd have to do it in the BIOS. So like we'd have everything automated up to the overclocking portion when we had to ship it out. So like people put it on to ship, and I'd pull it off, and I'm like, this thing's got a blue screen, I can tell, and I'm fuck it blue screen, you know? And I'm like, I have to go into the BIOS and change everything.
Change everything back.
Which was a pain, but being able to kind of just do that within the software itself.
Oh, yeah,
within
it's so
Windows,
much easier.
Especially a check that happens before you even,
Before it even gets
set yourself
applied,
to it,
yeah.
is really great. I think that's really good for a lot of the people that are looking for the performance out of their system that maybe quite not understand on their own performance, but being able to see the jump suddenly as they're making those changes on their own, especially messing around with Command Center.
Mhm.
Like, it's really beneficial for them to kind of see, like, what they paid for, as well as what can they get more out of this. Because Alienware says, I still have people sending me pictures of, and this is the code name we use for it, but I'm sure a lot of people know about it, was the Predator units that we had. We had these elongated kind of like desktops that had like Mega Man blue color and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
They're really cool looking. And I still have people sending me pictures of like those systems, like people with their 9800 NVIDIA GTX cards and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Like, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And like, there's a lot of longevity you can get out of your system. Like, you don't need to have the most current technology to make your system last long, especially being able to utilize overclocking. Like, you have a system
yeah.
that its longevity in your household or whatever purpose that you're using it for is just not definitively, but definitely expanded upon.
Yeah, I had like 10 or so years ago, I built a computer with, it was an i7-920, right? It was the very first i7s that came out. And I overclocked the crap out of it, and it was stable the whole time, right? And a couple years ago, I sold it to a friend of mine, and he's got like a couple of GTX 670s in it, and it still runs fine. Like, he still plays current games on it.
Yeah. My buddy was using that 9800 series system. That actually ended up becoming one of my friends because they kept sending me Alienware stuff, and I was like, "You're cool, man. Let's hang out." But it was only recently that he upgraded out of that system. He's had that system since like 2008 or 2009 or something like that. I'm gonna open up the chat for questions because we have a lot of people asking questions. Surprisingly, I didn't actually expect
cool.
that as I turned to my left. Okay, let's see if there's any questions here, but we'll give people a couple seconds because the stream is normally behind. You're from India and you can't figure out, and here we can configure it like that from Dell exclusives. I don't know what you're saying. Is it? I'm not sure. 1080 is unnecessary expensive. I don't know. I like the 1080 card.
I think it's a good card.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really good card. I think it's like, that card's gonna have like years of work in it.
gonna last for- yeah.
It's gonna
Oh, yeah.
last
It's gonna
a
be
long
popular
time.
for a long time.
The 1080 is stupid good.
And it's like a 2-year-old card at this point already,
Yeah,
and it's still really good.
it's still really good. That's why I was kind of like, are the RTX cards really gonna do anything different compared to this thing? Because this card's really stupid.
They seem to be picking up
Yeah.
steam now that the driver support's getting a little better.
Yeah, because the 10 series, like, I don't know how you top that. The 10 series was
I mean,
just dumb
I've got a
good.
1080 Ti, and I'm kind of looking at that 2080 Ti going like, maybe.
Will the Alienware Area 51 R2 be supported by the new command center? Are you talking about normal R2, or are you talking about like the Threadrippers? Because the Threadripper, I think, is an R2 now, right? It goes by a different revision, or is it not?
I think you're right.
I think it is,
You're
right?
right.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about Threadripper R2, that's pretty much what we announced Command Center on, so it should have it. If you're talking about just a regular Area 51 like revision, then no, it's not going to have it. But you can download the new Command Center with the functions to control like some of your Alienware peripherals, to control your power options, as well as utilize the game library that we introduced in this new iteration of Command Center. And by new iteration, I mean it's a brand new software. Like, it is not that old software. It is brand new.
Yeah, it's been, what, 9 months now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I keep saying new because people keep, like I said, our systems have like longevity to it. So
Right.
people bringing up the Command Center still as the other version.
Well, it's new because the old one was around for so long.
The other one was
With no
around since like
updates.
2008
Right,
or
so-
2009 or something.
So
Oh,
it's
wow.
definitely new.
Yeah.
And new, I think we could use the word new for a while.
Yeah, we're going to use the word new for a
Since
while.
Considering we've had the old
The
one.
new
Yeah.
Alienware Command Center with its new overclocking features.
So you get the new, you can get the new the new command center. You just
Yeah.
don't get necessarily all of the newest features
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't have the latest support from a hardware standpoint to do these like
Right.
what
Yeah.
we're doing here. So you can still take advantage, like you said, of the homepage, of the dashboard, of the
Yep.
game library, power management, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Even on an R2.
Yep.
So
Mhm. And that's, yeah, like I was saying earlier, right, like, when you kind of see what it is about the overclocking, right, it makes sense that there has to be that level of hardware and software integration available for this kind of stuff to work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to be able to overclock it out of Windows and run a test for stability without crashing the system, like, the hardware and software have to be super in sync.
Yeah.
you're not just going to be able to slap this on a MacBook and go overclock your MacBook because it's just the hardware profile.
I would
is
love
just
to,
not
though,
there,
because
right?
I've got a 10-plus-year-old MacBook, and that thing is getting real slow.
Just overclock it till it burns up. That's what
Yeah.
I do.
I think it already burned out. You haven't cleaned out the dust inside of it or anything,
Make
right?
some
Oh, no,
room-
I
make
have.
some
I-
room
You
for
have?
a real
Okay.
computer.
Yeah, no, I've taken that thing apart more times than probably most people ever do with a Mac, but
With a hammer.
no, the baseball
With a
bat.
baseball bat.
You're thinking of getting the amplifier and you want to get it with the RTX 2080, any chance it'll fit? Yes, it does fit. I was actually going to do a stream
Mhm.
last week going over RTX 2080 and the graphics amplifier. It 100% fits. It 100%
Yep.
fits. It's just my RTX card vanished. Let's see, what else is there? Oh, you just asked the same question again. Are there any new features for Alien Effects? There are new features for the 15 and 17. The latest iteration of those notebooks has, and it is an upsell. Like, you do have to purchase the per key RGB keyboard, which allows you to change all sorts of stuff. When I was testing it in your lab, I was trying to write the
Yep.
F word on there, and I pretty much could have if I
Yep.
completed. I don't have time for this. Why am I wasting? But you could definitely, that is available from Alien Effects. Alien Effects also with our newer systems, like there's a whole spectrum, and Spectrum's actually one of the features, but
Indeed.
there's a
Right.
whole bunch of new features. Could you actually go into that?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because we
Sure.
have, this isn't like an older one, right? No.
Nope, this has got all the 16.8 million colors.
Yeah, yeah.
RGB, full RGB values. The previous generation of Command Center didn't have that. I think we had 20 colors, 21 colors, something like that.
Yeah, there were some pretty set colors on there,
That's
and
it,
you
yeah.
can change these a lot, and that's one of the things I
You can
like about
pastel this
the
thing out if you
laptops.
want.
What?
You can
I don't know
pastel
if
it all
the-
out if you
Oh
want.
yeah, you can definitely
Yeah.
pastel it. You can definitely Bob Ross palette
You
your,
can Bob Ross
the
the
side of your
package
Area
trees.
51. Yeah, and that's one of the things I like for the new notebooks because I liked the default Alienware blue that we had around the head, but I kind of like that lighter touch
Yeah.
kind of look to it, like that ocean blue, and it
Mhm.
looks really cool on like the black panel that we have for the new Alienware 15 and 17.
One of the things I really think is super, super cool about this is, I don't know if you've got the chassis showing up on the camera at all, but Like, if you look at the speed that I'm moving this around and how long it takes to actually show up on the chassis, it's instantaneous.
Real
Yeah.
time, yeah.
Yeah, it's maybe 100 milliseconds latency, whereas I've got a system I built myself at home, right, that has a bunch of RGB built into the motherboard. And when I change it in the software there, it's like I hit click and apply, and then I like turn and look at it, and I'm like,
Wait.
there it is.
And one light's not going. And you're like,
Well,
oh, please.
I haven't run into that yet, but like, it's seriously like a good 2 or 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And then I see this, and I'm just like, oh, this is so much faster.
Yeah, the response time is insane with it.
And it never, like, the software and the hardware integration on my motherboard never felt bad until I used this.
Yeah.
And now I go home and I'm just like, oh my God, why does this take 3 seconds? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yes, we've got colors, we've got a number of different animations you can do in here, a ton of different zones you can select from and apply different colors to different effects. And then, of course, we've got different things.
You don't want to
can-
do it on that keyboard. That keyboard I broke.
Well, I won't mess with
Yeah,
anything
don't mess with the
then.
lighting on that one. That one I broke. If you notice, the lights are very weird on that one.
I did, and I honestly thought to myself, did I set that up the last time this
no.
thing was plugged into a
I don't
keyboard
know
like
how I
this?
did
or-
that to that keyboard, but I did it. This is before we launched it. That's how old that keyboard is. So I'm pretty sure I put some bad, like, firmware on there or something.
So we could restore it to factory default and see if that fixes it.
Nope, Birdie did all that. Don't worry
Okay.
about it. Trust me. Just
Never
leave
mind.
that keyboard alone. That keyboard, I
Never
have
mind.
devastated that thing. But I haven't been able to do that with any other keyboard, mess it up at all. Because this is like a pre-production one that I got
Oh, yeah.
for testing, just to get like my insight on it. And it kept pulling up like the new updates and stuff. And I guess because it was like a pre-production test one, it just died. It's still working. Just the lights
Yeah,
are
it's, I
weird.
mean, it
Yeah,
it still works as a
working. Yeah.
keyboard.
Yeah, it's definitely
Still-
definitely still a
Still has
keyboard.
key presses.
And the functions still work, like you can do the game mode and
Okay.
function things with the alien.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's just the lights don't change.
So lights are painted on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I painted all those on there. Are there more animated backgrounds on Command Center now? Yeah, there are. There's like
Yep.
spectrum, rainbow, there's lightning, there's tons of different effects. And this is the interface itself, right? Like you have waveform, smoke, galaxy. I almost said gravy. I don't know why. Can you imagine gravy? It's just the gravy ladle and
Dude,
it's just
it's-
pouring all over, and you're just spilling
Halloween's not
everywhere.
We
over
already
yet,
had
man.
lunch.
Give it time, you'll get your
You're hungry
A
gravy.
Thanksgiving skin for Command Center.
Getting close.
There's a new Command Center. I've answered that question a couple times, but the fully featured one is not coming to older desktops or laptops. It's only on current generation desktop and laptops. If you want the new Command Center software, you can still download it from our support site, and you'll have access to the power options, to controlling the lighting of your Alienware peripherals, as well as the game library that Eric has open right here on the dashboard.
Mhm.
Um,
I'd show off the library, but I
You don't
haven't
have
installed any
anything on
games on
there.
this, because just a
Yeah, it's
test
just your
and demo
test one.
machine.
Alienware, it would be nice if we came out with a phone. I agree, and this is a question that I get every single
I feel
day,
like, yeah, I heard that
9
question yesterday or
times.
something.
Like, no, I agree. An Alienware phone would be real nice. It'd also be nice for me to be able to put my phone on the desk when I'm doing my streams, because I always have to hide my phone, because you're not supposed to show other brands and stuff. It's kind of obnoxious. Can you overclock the GTX 1070 Max Q? That's not on here because we're not going to allow you to overclock on that box specifically because it wasn't built for overclocking. However, I have live in an old archive video on Twitch. If you go look for it and don't tell my managers, I did overclock the 1070 Max Q live at some point. And you can find it somewhere on our Twitch channel.
So if you know what you're doing,
So if you know what you're
Technically,
doing,
yes.
or if you
technically,
don't know what
yes.
you're doing and you watch Umar's video,
yes,
You'll still not know what you're doing.
you'll still not know what you're doing, but you'll see results. I think that's pretty much it. I don't see any real new. How much does the Area 51 cost?
depends on what you put
Yeah.
in.
Yeah,
it.
it depends on
varies.
what you put in there. I guess the starting price is Oh, with the most powerful components. Now, you see, I'm gonna give you an estimate now. You're making me do the legwork.
It's more than a Coke, but less than a new
I'm
car.
gonna show you how quick
Yeah,
it was to
close
get this
though.
answer.
Well,
Depends
it
on the
depends on the
car.
car.
There is an $8,000 Area 51.
So
With a
it's
2080
closer than I thought.
Yeah.
It's got a 2080 Ti overclocked. It's got 64 gigabytes of memory, and it's got an i9 7980XE. So
There you
I
go.
mean, if you want that, I mean, go for it. I'm not gonna stop you from
Do it.
from
We'd love it.
engorging our
Love to
margins.
sell
But
one of those.
sure, if you want to go crazy like that, I like the Aurora. I think the
I do
Aurora
too,
is like the
yeah.
perfect size. It gives me exactly what I need. I've been using Aurora for all of our streams here. Like it works for everything that I need. I know there's
Plenty
a
of
Threadripper
expandability,
behind you
too.
guys, but I don't use that Threadripper for my segments. Like it does everything I need. I can do gameplay performance. I can do streams. I can do multi-camera streams, different
Oh,
things
yeah.
on it. Like it does everything I need.
Yeah, and that's kind of the Alienware thing, right? Like, we're not
Yeah.
gonna, like, somebody said it'd be cool if we did a phone, right? Like, okay, but what can we do on a phone that's Alienware, right? That's gonna give you, like, way more performance than anybody else out there.
Rgb lighting, so we can kill your battery
Yeah.
on your phone, which is very important for you to make sure you have enough battery on.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think it'd be cool if we did a phone too. I just don't know what we would do on it that would be different.
All right, well, I mean, I guess that's someone asked me if we're gonna have more OLED options. I don't know, why don't you ask Frank? He can answer all those questions apparently on
On
Twitter.
Twitter.
Yeah, but okay. That's pretty much it for our tech talk. We went over
Sounds great.
what's new in the new command center. You should be getting that within a couple of days on your, those feature updates on your system, as well as you don't need to just get that from Dell support site. You can also get that from the Windows Store, right? You
Correct.
can download it from the Windows Store. You will need your Microsoft login for that, which shouldn't be too much of a problem. Everyone has a Windows login now. And that's it. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Nick, for coming by.
Thanks for having
Enjoying
us.
this. This is actually, guys, this is my first look at this. I haven't seen this yet at all. As a matter of fact, every time I have you two guys on at the same time, it's something that I didn't know about until
Good.
recently.
That's kinda
Like
good,
it's
though.
my first look at the thing. I didn't
Yeah.
get any hands on yet. So pretty cool. I learned a lot of stuff. I'm sure the people watching the stream learned a lot of stuff. And happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Kind of safe, anyway.
Yeah.
Safe enough.
Yeah,
Yeah,
safe enough.
don't go
So you
in-
can come back for the next one.
You stay away from Mr.
Maybe
Ralferson's
with, like,
lawn.
broken bones or
Ralferson's not a
something.
name, right? Have you ever met?
I don't know.
Mr. Ralferson. It sounds like an
Mr.
old guy
Ralferson.
name.
That does, yeah.
Stay away from Mr. Ralferson's
Stay off my
lawn.
grass.
All right. See you later, guys.
Peace out.
Bye.